Welcome grade 2s, this is Mrs. Swanepoel and today we are going to look at telling time. We are going to look at o'clock, half past, quarter past and quarter to. What do we know about clocks? Clocks with a clock face are called analog clocks. Here we have an analog clock. Let's have a closer look at analog clocks. This analog clock has a long minute hand, a short hour hand, and a thin red second hand. They help us to tell the time. Here we can see that the long minute hand is pointing to 2. It even goes across the 2. That's how we know this is the long minute hand. Let's have a look at the short hour hand. It just reaches the 10 and pointing to it. It's not going across it. That's how we know this is the short hour hand. And here we have the long thin second hand. The long minute hand. The long minute hand has a very important job. It shows us how many minutes have passed. It tells us when the time is o'clock, half past, quarter past, and quarter to. Here we have a clock and it's showing us the minute hand. Minutes. Let's talk a little bit more about minutes. We count the minutes that have passed on a clock in fives. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour, 30 minutes in half an hour, and 15 minutes in a quarter of an hour. Here we have a special clock to help us to read the time. This clock has been divided in halves. 2 halves. On the right side we have past when we read the clock. And on the left side we have 2 when we read the clock. This clock is showing us 10 past 10. We look at the long minute hand to see that it's pointing to the 2. When we count in fives 2 times, we get 10. This clock is showing that 10 minutes has passed. What hour has it passed? Let's look at the short hour hand. It's pointing to the 10. That's why we say this is 10 past 10. Now remember, the half on the right side will always read as past, and the half on the left side will always read as 2. When we read the time on the left side of the clock, we look at how much time is left until we reach the full hour. That's why they talk about 2. When the long minute hand, for example, is pointing to the 7, we will say it is 25 minutes to the hour. On this clock, when the long minute hand is pointing to the 7 and the short hour hand is pointing to the 10, we can say that it's 25 minutes to 11 o'clock. Because remember, time doesn't stand still. It keeps on moving forward. Just to remember again, on the right side of a clock, when we read the time, we say past. But on the left side, we're going to read 2. So then we look at how many minutes are left until we reach the next full hour. That's why they count backwards in fives again. Halves and quarters. Let's talk a little bit about halves and quarters. This will explain reading time a little bit better. A clock, when we read it, is divided into 2 halves. On the right side in yellow, we talk about past, and on the left side in green, we talk about 2. So when the long minute hand is pointing to a number on the right side, we will talk about it as minutes past. When the long minute hand is pointing to a number in the green on the left, we will talk about how many minutes to until the next hour. What they do is They divide a clock into quarters. That means to divide it into 4 equal parts. We are talking about time now. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour. If we cut 60 in half, we get 30. That means 30 minutes has passed. That is half an hour. So that's why when the long minute hand is pointing to the 6, we talk about half past. Now, when we divide a clock into 4 equal parts, that means that for each of the parts, 15 minutes will have passed. So 1 quarter equals 15 minutes. Now remember, the right side of the clock always talks about past. So when the long minute hand is pointing to the 3, it will say 15 minutes has passed. That makes up 1 quarter. So that's why we say that when the long minute hand is pointing to the 3, it is quarter past. Also remember now, for the left side, when we read the time on the left side of the clock, we talk about 2. What they do is they count to see how many minutes are left until a full hour is reached. How many minutes to go until a full hour has been reached. So when the long arm of the minute hand is pointing to 9, they count to see how many minutes are left. And let's see, from the 9, if we count in 5s all the way to the 12, how many minutes is that? Let's count 5, 10, 15. And what did we say? 15 minutes makes up a quarter. But because we are now on the left side of the clock, when the long minute hand is pointing to the 9, we can say that it is a quarter to the next hour. O'clock time. Let's quickly look at o'clock time again. When the long arm is on the 12 and the short hand is pointing to a number on the clock, it tells us what hour it is. Here we have a clock. Let's have a look. The long minute hand is pointing to 12, and where is the short hour hand pointing to? So what time do you think it is on this clock? We can read the time as 4 o'clock. Well done. Right, so let's look at half past. Let's look at a clock that shows us half past. When the long minute hand is on the 6, it says half past. The short hour hand will point to a place in between 2 numbers to show which hour it has passed. Here we have our clock. The long minute hand is pointing to the 6. Can you still remember what that means? Yes, it means half past. Let's see which hour it has passed. We have to now look at the short hour hand. Where is it pointing? It's pointing to a place in between 2 numbers. Which are those 2 numbers? Yes, it's the 12 and the 1. But remember now it says half past. So which of those numbers did the shorthand pass? Yes, it passed the 12. We can read the time on the clock as 12:30. Quarter past. Let's look at a clock that will show us quarter past time on it. When the long minute hand is on the 3, it says quarter past. The short hand will be pointing to a number to show which hour it has passed. Here we have a clock. The long minute hand is pointing to the 3. When it points to the 3, we say it's a quarter past. Now, what did it pass? What hour? Let's look at the short hour hand. Yes, it's the 7. So we can say that the time on this clock is 7:15. Let's look at 2:15 and when it's shown on a clock. When the long minute hand is pointing to the 9, it says 2:15. The short hour hand will be pointing to which hour it is moving to. Here we have our clock. We can see that the long minute hand is pointing to 9, which means 2:15. Now we have to find which hour it is moving to. So let's look at the short hour hand. To which hour is it the closest? It's pointing to the 5. So what is the time on this clock? Think a little bit. Yes, this clock is showing 5:15. Well done. Thank you so much for joining me, grade 2s. Stay safe. Until next time. Bye.